Them birds gonna fly, you already know. Rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles train to go.
All right, let's talk about it. Philly versus Kansas City, Week 2, rematch of the Super Bowl. Like I said, this was going to be a hard-fought game, and exactly was that. It seemed like every yard was hard to come by for both teams at certain points of the game. The game started off a little wonky with Jalen Hurts having a fumble to start the game on the first play of the game. That was a blown assignment by Grant Calcaterra. Like I said, he's a great receiving tight end, but he's not as great of a blocker as Dallas Goedert, and that showed immediately. He didn't pick up his man, leading Hurts to have to move out of pocket, leading to the fumble. Luckily, it was picked up, and it didn't start a disaster at the beginning of the game. A.J. Brown was immediately involved in this game. He had a catch to start the game off, so keeping the defense honest, knowing he was going to be involved in the game, that was a good plan. Saquon Barkley's first run was stuffed, so it seemed like KC was picking up where they left off in the Super Bowl. They're a very disciplined tackle team, so it wasn't going to be any easy work, and it showed on the first play, leading to a punt by Braden Mann, which was a great punt. He had great punts all game. I think he only had one that landed in the end zone, so he did a great job on his part. Special teams been doing a really good job. The first KC drive, Mahomes overthrew a receiver, leading to a punt. That wasn't the only overthrow he had for the game. When the Eagles got in their second drive on the 3rd and 10, when Jalen Hurts went to throw the ball, his arm hit Tyler Steen in the head, leading to that floating throw to AJ on the sideline that looked very weird if you were just watching the game and didn't see any of the replays, or if you just watch highlights and didn't see the replays, you wouldn't know that the ball was floating that way for that reason. But speaking of that play, the DB for KC pushed AJ Brown out of bounds when the ball was coming to him. If that was any other team, if that was not the Eagles, they would have called that. It would have been a free first down and a flag, because just because something weird was happening with the ball still doesn't mean it couldn't have been a reception. So you do what you will with that. Patrick Mahomes had 2 big scrambles to start the game that if the Eagles did not quickly contain it, it could have got out of hand. This is the second week in a row Patrick Mahomes is the leading rusher for his team. So they're struggling in the run game, and for him to have to take off, it also means that everybody is covered. So defense was doing a pretty good job. Other than that, he had a big scramble for a first down, but on that drive, it led to them having to kick a field goal, and Harrison Butker, he missed far right and keeping the Eagles in the game to start the game. On the third drive, which was probably the most consistent moving drive that the Eagles had. It was probably the best drive of the game for the Eagles, other than closing out the game. There was a screen to Smitty that went for a few yards, and then A.J. Dillon caught a check down and took it for a first down. And then Saquon Barkley ended it off with a 13-yard run, basically almost untouched, going into the end zone. And that was almost at the end of the first. So the Eagles were up 7-0 to end the first quarter. Very defensive game up until that point, but the Eagles were able to crack things wide open and get the first touchdown. So those were signs for good to come. And even though that was the best drive, it was the third drive, so it wasn't like they were getting stopped all game initially. And Kansas City, they also had probably one of their better drives on the third drive as well that they had. Kelsey had a big catch for 16 yards. Mahomes had a 22-yard scramble. And, it led to them eventually getting 3 points. On that same drive, this was in the second quarter, Andrew Makuba and Zadarius Smith, they had a combined sack, which was a great thing, leading to Harrison Butker having to kick a 56-yard field goal, which he made, leaving the game 7-3 up until that point, which was early in the second quarter. The fourth drive by the Eagles was killed by penalties. Landon Dickinson had a false start. Cam Jurgens had a holding flag leading to a punt. Adoree Jackson, we still need to talk about him. He missed a tackle on Hollywood Brown that led to a first down. If he caught him where he caught the ball, that wouldn't have been a first down, but he shook him off and was able to get the first down on that. On that same drive, keeping it alive, Kelsey had a fourth down conversion of a 4th and 4. And they ended up moving the ball down the field on that drive with the extended plays. Patrick Mahomes scrambled and ran over Andrew Mukuba on that same drive, which was pretty disappointing, but Andrew Mukuba was able to redeem himself as the game went on. Rookie mistakes. Second week in a row, Patrick Mahomes lowered his shoulder and ran over a DB. At that point in the game, Patrick Mahomes had about 69 yards rushing, which is just crazy. And that's not sustainable, but it was happening. So, you can't really do anything with that, but that can't be every week. And the Eagles know that wasn't going to be all game either. When it was happening initially, I was wondering what type of adjustments they were going to make to stop that, because it looked like that was going to be wide open all game, because his scrambles were coming off of guys being covered. So the secondary was doing their job. It's just the guys up front, nobody was containing the edges, and one of the runs he had was right down the middle too. So it's not even just to blame the guys on the edges. It's just they weren't really prepped for him to do that, even though he did that a lot in week 1. So they should have actually studied what happened with the Chargers and how he was able to scramble a whole lot in the game, being the leading rusher of his team. When KC was able to score on the Mahomes scramble, it was 10-7 by that point. And it was a solid 2-minute drive that made it 10-7. Jake the Make really deserves a lot of credit. They've been stepping it up this year. A lot of people counted him out. Eagle fans know that he's a big part of the team, and when he's on, we can take the points. Like I said, if we can keep doing that all season, it's gonna keep us in the game. So he had it was gonna be a 53-yarder, and then they threw a flag, making it a 58-yarder, and he still made it anyway. So it was a solid 2-minute drive for the Eagles. Hurts scrambled for a first down. AJ had a great catch on that same drive. That was the one-handed catch when he was falling, and then Jake the Make was able to seal it off, and then it was 10-10 going into the half. So the Eagles were still pretty much in the game. It was a defensive game at that point. Points weren't easy to come by for either team, but they were throwing the punches back and forth. So, you love to see it staying in there like that. In the third quarter, like I said, Andrew Mukuba, he started redeeming himself. He had a big third down hit that, stopped KC from advancing. And then they got desperate, coming out in the third. They were on their own 36 when they went for it on a 4th and 1. And you wouldn't normally expect that from a team of their caliber. But that says a lot about the Eagles and the type of pressure that they felt that they were under, that they were desperate enough to come out in the third and go for a 4th and 1 on their own side of the field, which was also big because the Eagles stopped them on that. And this is the problem with the offense that's going on under Kevin Patullo right now. Because when I saw that was supposed to be an opportunity to get 7 points. You don't get too many of those that fall into your lap, especially from a team like that, especially in a game like that. That's an away game. That was a missed opportunity to get 7 points. Lackluster plays ran, and it ended up being a 51-yard field goal for Jake the Make. I mean, that was terrible at that point, but you'll take the points, and it was 13-10 at that point in time. It should have been 17-10. It was 13-10. That keeps KC in the game because they made a huge mistake going for it on that 4th and 1, and they didn't really pay for it. They can look at it like they gave the Eagles 3 free points. I look at it like the Eagles left 4 more points on the table, but at least they were able to capitalize and get some points off of that. It's always good for momentum when you're up on the road. And moving on from that, the next drive for KC was a 3-and-out. So they should have really capitalized on that because you were stopping them. You were stopping them consistently. Both teams had a hard time on third down conversions in the game. Following that, on the Eagles' next drive, Saquon Barkley had 4 consecutive runs for positive gains. They were looking good, but have to get a lot more creative with the play calling. You know, that was on talent alone that was able to get that done. It wasn't really great design for the runs. Out of the 4 runs, there were 2 of them that were really explosive for like first downs. But the other 2, you know, they were a little hard to come by. And then that same drive was basically killed by penalties. There was a false start on Lane Johnson, and also Hurts took a big hit for a sack leading to a punt. Kelsey had a big game following that, keeping them in the game. They also picked up a 4th and 1, and they were really driving. That was that drive that could have changed the complexion of the game and had it been 17-13, because they were on the goal line. They were going to score. Travis Kelsey had the ball in his hands in the end zone, but luckily he fumbled the bag, bobbling the ball, had it in the air, and Andrew Makuba, he showed signs of that in the preseason, that he's going to be around the ball and he has great hands. So that's exactly what happened. Luckily that he didn't get tackled by Reed Blankenship in the end zone, because they might have called a safety on that. But he was able to take it back he took it back for a lot of yards. I think he ended up on the 41. And that was a big momentum shift right there for the Eagles, because that was needed. Because not only did you get a turnover at a crucial point of the game, it also stopped any points from happening. Because if KC had failed to score a touchdown on that drive, they were right there. They were going to get at least 3 points out of it and tie the game up. So, and the way they were playing, I don't think they were playing to tie the game up. They were trying to take the lead and keep momentum on their side. So that not only deflated them, it kind of put momentum back on the Eagles side, which was a big deal, leading to the only big throw of the game from Jalen Hurts. He had about two big throws in the game. That was the only completed one. They were both to Devontae Smith. On the first one was earlier in the game when Smitty went down and looked like he was injured for a second. The ball hit him in the hands. He usually comes down with those, you know, so that's not going to happen all the time. And it showed on the second one. If you watch the play, that was a great throw by Jalen Hurts, because when he released the ball, Smitty was just getting out of his break. He was only about 10 yards down the field. And that was just the trust between those 2 guys right there, because there was enough air on the ball for Smitty to run his route. And he was looking for the ball the whole time. He was never looking at the quarterback, which was great. The DB he didn't have his head turned fast enough. Devontae was able to make an adjustment and make the catch. So that was a big play. Even though they were at the goal line, that could have been a bad situation, not getting a touchdown on that, but they were able to do the brotherly shove 2 times to be able to pick up the touchdown, making the game 20-10. There was about 7 minutes and 48 seconds left in the game when that happened. And this is also where I have another problem with the new offensive coordinator. We're still going to get to that, because from then on, it seemed like the Eagles were just playing to not lose the game and not capitalize on the fact that they were not only scoring more than KC, they had them to 10 points at that point. Patrick Mahomes up until that point only had about 100 yards for the game. So both quarterbacks were really struggling to get any yards, passing yards. And Patrick Mahomes, he had more rushing yards. But like I said, that wasn't off of design plays. That was scrambles. And on KC's next drive for that, when the game was 20-10, they had a 3-and-out with 7 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game, meaning they only had the ball for, it was like what's the math on that? That's 39 seconds. And you know, that's a big deal when they're supposed to come back and try to score to not tie the game, but just stay in it, whether it's get 3 points or get a touchdown and be down by 3. You were able to stop them with quick 3 and out. And from then on, it should have been an easy game. But like I said, it was like they were playing to not lose at that point because they did absolutely nothing with the ball. They did nothing with the ball, and the ball went right back to Kansas City following that. Moro Ojomo had a great sack that pushed Mahomes back. Mahomes also overthrew his receiver, and that was supposed to be another 3 and out. Even if they were going to go for it on the 4th, I feel like the referees bailed out Kansas City by having the roughing the passer called on Jahad Campbell. That was bogus. It was a bogus call, but anything to keep them in the game and keep it interesting. Even when they threw that touchdown, which was the biggest throw of the game for Patrick Mahomes, that actually put his statistics at 187 yards passing. When that happened, the commentator said 3rd time's the charm, because they know they kept giving Kansas City a chance to stay in the game. Even that touchdown was a miscue from Blankenship and Quinyon. I'm not sure whose assignment that was, because nobody was with that guy. And Quinyon did a great job of trying to get back. He showed his speed on that. And, that was almost a pass breakup, because he was right there. He put his arms right there in between the receiver's arms when he caught the ball. It was just a better catch from the receiver of Kansas City, so you have to give him credit for that. But Quinyon, he made up for the space on there, and if somebody was there, I'm sure that wouldn't have been a touchdown. But like I said, I don't know who blew the assignment. It might have been Blankenship, but that made the game 20-17 with 3 minutes left in the game. Kansas City, they didn't want a chance giving the Eagles the ball back with ease. And whether it was a good decision or not, they went for the onside kick with 3 minutes left in the game. A.J. Brown was on the hands team, did a great job recovering the ball. That was a big, big deal, because the momentum really matters. If the Eagles didn't get the ball back on that onside kick, who knows what happens. So A.J. recovering the ball, that was a big deal. And they put Saquon in for the closer. He had a couple great runs. And, after that, they ended the game with 2 brotherly shoves, picked up the first down, ended the game. So, overall, game ended 2017. For the first downs, it was about equal. The Eagles had 16 first downs. Kansas City has 17 first downs. Third downs, both teams struggle. Eagles converted 5 out of 14 third downs. Kansas City 4 out of 12. So they both had each other's numbers in that realm. Fourth down, the Eagles went for it once, converted the once. Kansas City went for 4th down 3 times, converted it twice. Total yards, Eagles 216, KC 294. Passing yards, 101 for the Eagles, 187 for Kansas. Rush yards, 122 for the Eagles, 121 for Kansas City. 58 plays for the Eagles, 57 plays for Kansas City. Completion attempts, 15 of 22 for Jalen Hurts, 16 of 29 for Patrick Mahomes. Rush attempts, 34 for the Eagles, 26 for KC. No turnover for the Eagles, big deal. 1 turnover for Kansas City, that interception that changed the complexion of the game. 2 sacks for Jalen Hurts, 2 sacks for Patrick Mahomes. 6 penalties for 48 yards for the Eagles. 6 penalties for 45 yards for Kansas City. So both teams were equal there. Time of possession, the Eagles had the ball for about 5 minutes longer. So they benefited from that, even though they did a whole lot of nothing on offense at various points of the game. So now let's talk about it. Like I said in my instant reaction video, the jury's still out on Kevin Patullo. Everybody's not going to be great at their job just coming into the job. Basically, this was his second day on the job, if you want to use real world terms. So, you're not great at your job on the second day at the job. So he's still getting his feet wet, but he's very conservative right now. And I guess it makes sense because the number ones didn't really play in the preseason, so these first couple games is kind of like a preseason for them. The fact that they were able to still win the games and come out victorious, even though they don't look that good right now on offense, that's only signs for improvement. We're hoping it's not a 2023 type of situation where the guys are winning on talent alone until things collapse. I don't see that coming. I feel like the team learned their lesson from that, so I don't see it happening. Not sure how involved Sirianni is in the play calling because, once again, like I said, it's looking like 2023. They can do a lot better than that, but we just have to give things time to gel together. Chris Jones was chirping at the end of the game, talking about you didn't even have 100 yards to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts told him, we won the fucking game. That's it, man. We're here to win. You can take the stats home with your L. Russell Wilson had one of the greatest games of his career. 433 yards he was throwing for. And they lost the game on a field goal. So I'm sure he'll take the W over the stats. So we'll take the dub any day over stats. And like I said, the defense really, really kept us in that game. They played a great game. I can trust the defense moving forward, even though there's a bunch of young guys and a bunch of new guys. The fact that they were able to hold Kansas City to 10 points for most of the game. The fact that Patrick Mahomes only had about 130-something yards going towards the end of the game, late in the fourth quarter. That's a big deal. No rushing yards for KC. I mean, they're not really great at rushing like that, so their running backs, they're not eating on any defense, but let alone the Eagles defense. So I have trust in the defense moving forward. They're only going to get better. They're the youngest defense in the league. Those guys, a lot of them just started playing together. They're rookies out there starting. So, it's only going to get better as the year goes on. And the offense also has time to get better right now. A.J. Brown had 5 receptions, 8 targets. So, just keeping him in the game is a big deal because keeps him active in the game and also keeps the defense knowing that, hey, number 11 is still over there. Devontae Smith, leading receiver with 53 yards. We have to do a lot better than that. But, a win is a win, and we can't keep saying that because when you play teams that know how to win, somebody's going to have to lose one of these type of games. So you're not always going to get it going in your favor this way, even though that last-minute touchdown by KC made the game a lot closer than it actually was towards the end of it. You still can't let teams hang around. When you get there, you have to shut the door on opportunities for them. You can't let them come back like that and get in the game and get any type of momentum, So right now, Kevin Patullo, he has to call better run plays because they call run plays and they're very predictable. They're running against a loaded box. Saquon Barkley working hard for the yards. He had 88 yards in this game. And, we'll take it, but it can be a lot better than that. They have to call. He's running out of shotgun and pistol. I mean, it has to be a lot better than that. And the routes for the receivers, if you watch the tape, nobody is open. And we have to credit Jalen Hurts for not putting the ball in danger. You can do whatever you want with the stats and talk about what he's not doing. But at the end of the day, if he was forcing the ball and getting interceptions, people will also criticize that. He almost had his first interception for the year trying to force the ball to AJ on a slant route, which was like the 116th slant route in the game. The DB almost jumped it, and it was a bad throw from Hurts himself. So, it could have been bad in that situation right there. So they have to call better plays. The plays are taking too long to develop. And like I said, Dallas Goedert was missed. He's a safety blanket for Jalen Hurts on the check downs and the underneath throws. He's gonna get his first down conversions. If you really look into it, Dallas Goedert is responsible for a lot of 3rd and 4th, 3rd and 8th conversions that the Eagles get. So he wasn't in the game. He's a better blocker than Grant Calcaterra, so that also give Jalen Hurts more time to throw the ball, especially when you're dealing with a Kansas City defense that's blitzing. They said that was the most that they've blitzed in years. So a lot of people are going to criticize Jay Hurts for the game, but everybody doesn't face defenses like that. In the first 2 weeks, it was a rivalry game, a divisional game that we ended up victorious. He put the team on his back in that game. And then the second game was an out-of-conference rivalry game as well. So, they got a lot sent at them in the first 2 weeks of the game. In the first 2 weeks of the season. And they can only get better from here. Everybody's going to bring the Eagles their best. Everybody's basically trying to avenge something. The Rams come to Philly next, and they felt like they were supposed to be the ones going to the NFC Championship game. I never saw it that way during the game, but you leave it to the talking heads. They'll tell you that the Rams were the only team that could have beat the Eagles in the last playoff run. So everybody's going to be bringing their best, but I trust the defense. I don't care what the other teams are doing against any other team. I trust our defense to do their jobs and do it well. Zadarius Smith, he's looking the part and he's fitting well, giving young players like Jalen Hunt a chance to grow into his role and not have so much pressure on him. Because if it was just up to Nolan Smith Jr. and Jalen Hunt, that's a lot of pressure on the young guys. But you have a veteran like that. He's great for the run. He's great at getting to the quarterback. He's very intelligent at his job. If you see what he does, he's shedding blocks and stopping the run, getting to the quarterback. And this is his first game with the Birds. So the only good things are to come from that. Overall analysis of the game, the offense has to get a lot better, but they will. They usually get a lot better as the season goes on, even if they don't play to people's liking. Seeing the temperature on the internet, everybody's complaining about the brotherly shove. We don't care. Being an Eagles fan, you have to have tough skin. If you don't, you're going to get your feelings hurt by the national media because they're never for us. They're always against us. They're going to take shots at us and, the team and the fan base. During the game, the lead official was saying things about, I'm over the tush push. I'm tired of this. That's bias right there. Who cares what you're tired of? Nobody cares what you're tired of. Call what you're supposed to be calling. Is it a first down or not? Nobody cares if you're tired of it. So at the end of the day, being an Eagles fan, you have to have tough skin because everybody's going to always say, oh, they're cheating to do this, they're cheating to do that. That play is this and that. Guys are jumping off sides. Guys line up sideways. If you watch the replays on it, I don't care about a false start when the guy on the other side is already on this side before they even snap the ball. So they're probably going to ban the play next year. I kind of didn't care if they banned it coming into this year because it's just a go-to excuse for everybody when they're talking about the Eagles, always complaining about something. But we don't care. We just want to win. We just want to win. And that's what we're doing. So at the end of the day, you can take your complaint and shove it. Go Birds.
Them birds gon' fly, you already know. Brains to the snow, Eagles train to go. Say what you want about a cute good coach, but all they do is whip, put their feet on your throat. Line hunts, secondary, no fly zone. When you leave the link, it's a long flight home. Them birds gon' fly, you already know. Brains to the snow, Eagles